Morning. Yeah, that was awesome. Some conferences have okay MCs and some conferences have really cool ones. And the MCs can really make or break the experience for the audience, especially if they're annoying. And that also sometimes happens. But these guys are awesome, so thank you very much. So I'm really excited about this presentation because there's nothing I hate more than talking about stuff that's not real. And so I'm going to be talking about something that's very real, and I'm going to try and motivate you to go and have a look at the real things happening out there. I'm talking about why build Bitcoin circular economies in Africa, and we're going to get into it. So this clicker is, there we go. We'll just do a very, very brief introduction and history. Won't spend much time on that at all, and it's just to give you a slight background, and then we'll move through the rest of the stuff. So I mentioned this to actually prove a point. I'm not saying this to brag about being early or anything. The purpose of this presentation is to demonstrate why circular economies matter, and one of the big reasons they matter is because they kind of settle the debate of store of value versus medium of exchange. I came into Bitcoin as a medium of exchange, and I did that as early on as 2015. And so this whole debate of medium of exchange versus store of value, blah, 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 is not really a debate as far as I'm concerned. It's two different use cases depending on what your needs are and what your situation is. I did not adopt Bitcoin as a store of value because I don't have that Bitcoin anymore. The first time we received Bitcoin as payment was 2015. We had a business to run, and so we sold it as soon as we got it here. It served a purpose to get value from one country to another country and bypass financial sanctions. So it was a medium of exchange for me from the very beginning, which is why I guess building circular economies make sense to me. Bitcoin Ekasi did not pop out of the ground like a mushroom. It took a lot of hard work. The experience of building a business, my wife still runs the tour operator today. Unravel. Bitcoin Beach provided the inspiration that we needed. It wouldn't have happened without them leading the way. And then obviously building a trusted community platform took many years of blood, sweat, tears, and lots of other stuff. And that all led to the creation of Bitcoin Ekasi as a circular economy. But we were building on top of all of that. Okay, so that's the brief history. Just quickly, what's the scale of the project? People often ask that. The scale is not massive. It's not huge, and it's not intended to be massive. It's relatively small if you think about it. There's about 450 people that use Bitcoin either on a daily, a weekly, or a monthly basis, and the idea is not to scale it much further than that. The circular economy is quite an ineffective and inefficient way to onboard thousands of people, and it's not recommended that you try and build a circular economy and then go out and onboard 10,000 merchants. It's likely not to succeed. Okay, so that's most of that done. Now we're going to get into the sort of the meat of it, which is what I really want to talk about. First of all, what is a Bitcoin circular economy? Typically, they are geographically concentrated and very well defined. So they tend to be within a small location. If you've ever been to El Zonte, there's a good reason why it worked there. It was a very small, concentrated area. Circular economy is a place where people earn, spend, and save in Bitcoin. Sats, Satoshis, fractions of a Bitcoin, circulate as a medium of exchange between people. And it's the Satoshis that circulate. It's not Satoshis that are exchanged for fiat, and then that is the thing that circulates. It's the minimization of fiat intermediaries. Success is obviously not measured by size. Instead, success is more measured by the frequency and the density of your Bitcoin transactions. So it's better to have 10 merchants on board and they each receive 10 transactions per day rather than 100 merchants on board and they only receive 1 or 2 transactions per day, because it's the frequency and the density that make a bigger impact than anything else. And the focus is always on a real-life impact. But we'll get around to that. So this is what I really wanted to get to. So if I was a little bit quick on the first 4, we're going to spend more time here. We're going to spend most of the time here, because this is really what the presentation is about. Why do they matter? What's the point? And I believe they're quite important. As far as I'm concerned, what's a good way to put it is it's where the rubber meets the road. So circular economies make adoption real. First of all, as I mentioned earlier on, it's kind of frustrating to constantly see this store of value versus medium of exchange debate go on and on and on and on. And it's especially frustrating to see people say, well, it's got to become a store of value first, and then it's going to become a medium of exchange. And I just keep on repeating my own personal story. I can't explain any of the fancy theories. I just explain my personal story and then the story of the people who work with me in the project, is that, well, clearly reality demonstrates that it's both at the same time, depending on what your use case is, depending on what your needs are. If you have a problem sending money from point A to point B, but you don't have value to store, it's not going to be a store of value, but it can be a pretty efficient way to move money from one place to another. So circular economies are good for that. They're also really good. They're also really good at demonstrating that we should be skeptical of the stablecoin narrative, to say it politely, because there is a very strong push to have stablecoins adopted in Africa. And I can only speak for South Africa, really. I can speak a little bit for the rest of the continent, but not too much. But there's a very, very strong push to have stablecoins adopted in South Africa. A certain company recently came out, made a little film, and it was horrible. And they were talking about how the stablecoin that they issue is coming in to save, blah, 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 blah. And it's the same old thing all over again. Yes, we're here to save you. Buy our stablecoin that's pegged to the worst shitcoin out there, and it's going to help you live a better life. And it's clearly not based on reality, because the people they were interviewing were, as far as I'm concerned, kind of irrelevant in this space, because they've lost the plot a long time ago. And so the question is, well, why this heavy push for stablecoins? So at the very least, we should be aware that they can be financial surveillance and exploitation tools. And so circular economies demonstrate that we don't really need them. Because, I mean, we've been running Bitcoin Ekasi for, 4 years now, and we don't use stablecoins. So why would we need them? Circular economies demonstrate that Bitcoin is freedom money. It's freedom money when you use it to save, spend, earn. It's freedom money for money in all its forms. Circular economies also cut through the crypto hype. They're really good for that. I've seen many people come and visit the project, and it's all crypto this, blockchain that, Web3, blah, 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 and none of it really has any substance in reality. And then they leave the project and they go, oh, okay, so that's kind of what it's all about. It makes it real. And then the last three is probably the most important. I hope I don't run out of time. Circular economies are great for educating without complexity. And so oftentimes in South Africa, many other African countries, we're dealing with populations where illiteracy is a huge problem. I mean, you'd be surprised to know, but Lutando, that is the lead for Bitcoin Ekasi in the township where we operate, one of his biggest problems is people coming to him because they can't read numbers. And so the way they would typically exchange value was by looking at the pictures on the coins and the notes, and that's how they understand what to give and what to receive in return. Wow, and now you give them a Bitcoin wallet. I mean, now you got to read numbers. If you can't count to 1 million, then you got an issue. So this is the level of education you're dealing with, and you can't give them the Bitcoin standard. That's not going to help. So how do you educate them on Bitcoin? Well, the circular economy is great for that, because if you use something every single day, you might not be able to explain elliptic curve photography or whatever, but you learn to trust the system by using it every single day. And that's how you get into it and eventually start saving in it. So it's great for that. And then the last two, definitely the most important. So first one is, oh shit, there we go. No, how do I go back? Yeah. If you are building a circular economy and people are only spending but not saving, you're doing it wrong. The ultimate aim is not spending. The ultimate aim is financial empowerment. Whether that's Bitcoin or something else, well, it doesn't really matter. Bitcoin is just a tool to get to financial empowerment, obviously. It's a great tool for that. I think it's the best tool for that. And spending is a way to get there. So I've seen it happen again and again. You introduce people to Bitcoin by demonstrating that you can go to Pick n Pay, you can pay with it. You can go to the spa shop down the road, you can pay with it, and then that's how you learn to trust the system. And eventually, with time, you decide to start saving in it, and that's when it changes your life. It's absolutely great for that. Let's see. And again, I tend to not to have this debate anymore, but this was a particularly interesting interaction. So, I mean, I like Fernando. He's a great guy. He doesn't work for Blockstream anymore. He's doing his own thing now. He's got a fantastic new project that he's working on. But when he was working for Blockstream as the Vice President of Marketing and Communications, teaching poorest communities to spend Bitcoin is not financial empowerment. It's theft of their future. No, it's not. I mean, the point that you're missing is that teaching them how to spend is teaching them how to save. And it's funny because we're using his product to teach people how to save. I mean, they built the Blockstream Jade wallet. But Sizwe over here would never have chosen to save in Bitcoin if we hadn't first demonstrated to him, hey, don't worry, this is not fake money. It's not a scam. I'm not going to give you a book to convince you that that's the case. I'm just going to tell you, go down to the road, go spend it at your spaza shop, go spend it at Pick n Pay, do whatever you want to with it. And then eventually you're going to learn to trust it, and then you'll start saving in it. So that's Sizwe's shack, by the way. Okay, and then finally, this is perhaps the most important part of the whole conversation. So I'm wearing my Money Badger t-shirt today. Carl is also speaking today. So the thing about Bitcoin circular economies is that maybe this is a misconception that people had when we started building these. Maybe people looked at Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador and they thought, well, okay, so Bitcoin Beach happened and then the whole country adopted Bitcoin and that's what's going to happen all around the world. Probably not. But I can understand how people have this idea that Bitcoin circular economies is the thing that's going to onboard hundreds of thousands and millions of people. They're not. I mean, that you can't realistically expect them to do that. It's very resource intensive to go out and build a circular economy. I was having this conversation with somebody last night, and like, yeah, I got the Twitter handle. Now I just need to build the circular economy. And I mean, not to discourage anyone, but it's going to be a full-time job. Like 100%, it's going to be a full-time job, and you're not going to get to more than 500 people using it on a daily basis unless you get somebody else to help you. And then it's a full-time job for both of you, and then you might get to 1,000 people. So better go out there and build a company that's going to onboard hundreds of thousands or millions of people. And there are several of those companies in this room. There's Money Badger, there's Tando, there's Machankura, there's Orange. But here's the thing, and Carl should, I don't know if Carl is going to say anything about any of this, but if he doesn't, you should go up to him and ask him, because I had this conversation with him beforehand. So we've painted about 50 murals in our township. He's the only company CEO that painted his own logo. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is you shouldn't be asking me. You should be asking him why he spent the day in the sun sweating away and getting himself full of paint. But the thing is that you need places where factory builders can go and see, okay, this is kind of what I'm building towards. This is where we're going. This is what I'm working towards. You know, I mean, one of the other people, KG as well. I mean, he was one of the first people. He was not the first person, but he was one of the first people that came out and visited Bitcoin Ekasi, because it provides this real life environment where you can test things, where you can see, okay, this is kind of where we're headed. And ultimately, it's those factories, the Bitcoin factories, that is going to onboard hundreds of thousands or millions of people. But it's a very healthy symbiotic relationship that you can have between these small circular economies and the factories that end up doing the massive onboarding that we want to see. If you're building a good circular economy, that's what can happen. And if you don't believe me, you shouldn't believe me, actually. You shouldn't believe me. What you should do is you should get in your car and go and visit one of them. And there's a whole bunch of them. So just the last 5 minutes. There's a whole bunch of them. And I'm trying as hard as I can to make sure that there's one as close to you wherever you are. Because you shouldn't have to fly halfway around the world to go and visit one. Ideally, you should have one close to where you are. Go, visit, see, verify that it's happening, it's real. It's not just a Twitter video, because those are quite easy to, make it look like it's something it's not. So you've got to get your eyeballs there. That's the point. Anyway, so the Federation is a very loose group of circular economies. It's a global thing. Sorry, you guys can't see. I'm standing in the way here. The Federation it's a global thing. It's not a big bureaucratic structure. I hate bureaucracy. I absolutely hate it. Trust me, I hate it. But it's a loose group of people building circular economies that come together, learn from each other, provide guidelines, best practices, what works, what doesn't work. And then the sort of informal African arm of that is what we call the Federation of the African Federation. And there is about, at the moment, this is a little outdated. So we've got more than 32 projects that are building circular economies in Africa. There's about 45 at the moment. Not all of them are super active. I'd say about half of them are very active. And some of them are still in the very early phases. Some of them face really challenging circumstances, so you can't expect them to build very quickly. And it's going to take time. But the point is that there should be one close to you, and you should go out and visit them and see what it is and why it matters. And ultimately, we've done some really cool things with this as well over the last couple of years. So we're obviously trying to make Bitcoin everyday money by building circular economies. And these are some of the highlights that I'll quickly run through. So this is unofficial. We can't actually verify this. But I think we've done the largest batch payment with Blink. I should have put that off before. I think we've done the largest batch payment with Blink that's ever been done. So that's 2,100 sats each to more than 700 people across 8 African countries, and all of that in less than 30 minutes, which is awesome. I mean, you show this to someone with a... It's not... We weren't the ones that built this, but the point is, Blink obviously it's an awesome company. I mean, it's unfortunate that Kamal is not here. He's sort of one of the co-founders of the conference. He's been here the last 2 years, but again, Blink is one of those factories. But where is Blink going to go to introduce their product and learn from it and make it better? Because we give them lots of headaches. We're constantly telling them, no, you should add this, you should change that. This doesn't work, that doesn't work. Same thing for Fedi. Really excited about what they're doing, especially with the whole federated custody thing that's happening on Fediment. I can't squeeze that into this talk, but anyway. Some of the other things that I'll just quickly run through. This is also really cool. We built a proof-of-work bot. I didn't. Again, it's one of the other factory builders that is in the circular economy movement. Basically what it is, it tries to verify proof-of-work that's posted online, and it automates the whole process. It was built by a person who has never coded in his life. He's not a developer. He used AI, started asking questions, and what he ended up with was a system that takes posts from social media, reviews it, adds it into a database, and builds a really cool dashboard that you can go and look at to see what's happening in circular economies in Africa. And you should definitely go and look at that dashboard. That's the address over there. We'll share it again on the Telegram group, or whatever the case may be. But this gives you an overview of what's happening in the circular economy space. And the point is, it's one of those factory things that's come out of circular economies. So finally, last minute, African Bitcoin Circular Economy Summits is something that we're working on. We did the first one here at this conference on, what was it, 2 days ago? Thursday? No? No, man, it was Thursday. Thursday, or not Wednesday. Yeah, it's all sort of gone into... Anyway, so we did that one. We did one at the Africa Bitcoin Conference in Mauritius, which was very cool. The one we did here was also really great. And then we're planning... Sorry. we're planning a much bigger one in 2027, again at Adopting Bitcoin Cape Town for next year. So that's really cool. And then finally, just to end up with, this is why I hate bureaucracy. We should have been building by now, hint, hint. But we're struggling with the local council. So we have the permission to build there. We have the permission to buy the land. Long-standing relationship with the Mossel Bay municipality, who's agreed to sell us this land at a very, very good price, but now we're stuck in bureaucratic hell because of paperwork, basically. But hopefully we can still start in 2026. Otherwise, we'll start building in 2027, and it'll be a hub for circular economies, because the point is that you gotta bring these projects together in real life to learn from one another and so on. And it's kind of like, that's the last thing I'll say. The thing with circular economies, what makes them great is that it's human interaction. You cannot build a circular economy and send someone to a blog post or a YouTube video. People in those contexts don't adopt Bitcoin that way. They adopt it by sitting down with a person across the table from them, and the person literally walks them through the thing step by step, face to face. That is what you need to build a circular economy. A lot of these circular economies don't have that. We intend to build a hub where they can come, they can learn, and we can keep building these things. Cool. And it's got a fantastic view. If it eventually gets built, it's got a great view. It's got the best view. I mean, you've got to kind of just clean up the area in front of it, but we're working on that too. And if you're coming on the road trip, you'll see that in person. Cool, that's it for me. Thank you.